Alright y'all, so for this video we're going to do something a little bit different, and that is how to make your very own skateboard wax at home out of the ingredients you see sitting here in front of you. So what you're going to need to make this work is your boiling water, obviously, which is already at a rolling boil. You're going to need some form of mold. This is just a silicone ice tray that works really well, I've found, but any type of mold or tray will work for this ingredient. I'm sure a regular old ice cube tray would work just fine. This is the one I'm going to use right here. It makes nice good sized bars of wax that don't run out too quick, so this is the one I'm going to use. We also have a rag here, and that'll be for when we're moving around the can later. We are going to need chopsticks right here, or any form of stick, really, anything that can handle heat and be used to stir. You're going to need a spoon, a candle. Now these IKEA candles work very well. This is the Dagligen candle, but any form like the Phenomen, any type of pillar candle that is unscented is going to work really well, and that is because when you dice this stuff up, it melts up really fast, and it's also really granular. It's not soft, it's not mushy, and it really holds your wax together very well. Now, you're going to need some form of like hard wax. This is, I get this from my work right here. This is what our cheddar cheese comes wrapped in. But if you don't work at a restaurant, don't know anybody that works at a restaurant that has this type of wax, you can always get Gulf wax at a grocery store, Walmart, anywhere should have it. I'm going to need vegetable oil, canola oil, some type of oil. You don't need a whole lot, just enough to fill up this spoon right here. You're going to need regular old butter. Again, not a whole lot. We're just going to be doing half a tablespoon for this recipe. And then you're going to need a metal can. Now I already have my wax in here. I'll get into the measurements in a little while, but this is what you're going to be melting your wax in. So the way I do my recipe that I found works really well, I take my diced up candle here and I fill the can about 2/3, 3/4 of the way with it, and then I dice up this right here into small chunks, put it on top, kind of cram it down, and then I put some more of the candle wax on top, and then once it melts down, we're going to add these other ingredients, kind of divvy out some more candle wax, some more of this black wax. But what you're going to want to do once your boiling water is going, you are going to want, get it centered here, you are going to place your can with the crumbles into it. Now, the smaller you have these diced up, the better they will be for melting quickly, the easier this will be to do. So, with this, now you want to be careful because the steam from the boiling water will burn you if you're not careful. Like I said, I work in a restaurant, so I'm kind of used to it. My nerves endings are pretty much kaput just from being burned all the time. So you're going to want to let that roll a little bit. So while we're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and cut a little bit of this butter off here. I'm going to do a little bit of my canola oil once this all melts up, because you're going to want to mix it all together once it gets melted down. Alright, so I'm going to cut just a small, very, very small. Now I use about half of this tablespoon marker right here. So just about half of a tablespoon is all we're going to need for this amount. Cut it wrong. All we're going to need for this amount right here. Go ahead, leave that right there. And now this wax over here melts up fairly quickly. It's already getting pretty melted down there in the bottom. But we are going to let that get nice and liquefied before we start adding these other ingredients in. Now, as you can see, with this black wax, it does turn your wax a nice grayish black color, as you can see here. but you can, if you use different colored waxes, whatever colors you are using with candles, the Gulf wax, whatever, is the color that your wax is going to come out. So if you're wanting to wax, say like a curb in front of your house or something, maybe don't use the black wax so that you don't piss off your parents, your roommates, or whatever. But as you can see here, this is getting nice and liquefied in there. We are almost ready to add a little bit more. So, like I said, this is about 3 to 4 parts of my candle wax to about 1 part of my Gulf wax at this point. So now that this is getting nice and liquefied and easy to stir, there is some chunks still in the bottom, but what we are going to do is add just a little bit more of this candle wax in there. I'm going to go ahead and throw this in there, and be careful not to get it in your water, because then you're going to have a waxy pan to deal with afterwards, which isn't a really big deal, but it is kind of a pain to clean after it's all said and done. Once the wax cools down and kind of hardens, it is kind of a pain to deal with. So, just going to keep stirring a little bit. Now, this candle wax melts very quickly. It is the black wax that I am using that does take the longest to kind of melt, but once it gets going, it really gets going. As you can see, it is mostly liquid now. But you really want to wait for it to get completely liquefied until you add your other ingredients. And then after you add your other ingredients, if you want to add a little bit more wax to it just to fill it off, get a real good amount for your wax when it hardens and everything, that is fine. You just kind of want to stick with that same portion of candle wax to your black wax, a good 4 parts of candle wax to 1 part of your Gulf wax or whatever other wax you are using. Alright, so we have got it pretty well liquefied. There are some chunks, but those are going to melt down fairly quickly for us. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to take that little half a tablespoon of butter, drop it right in there in the mix. Let it melt up with it. And like I said, you're only going to need about a tablespoon of your oil. Now if you are making a bigger batch, a larger can, you're going to want to multiply your ingredients accordingly, just depending on what size you're using, how much wax you're going for, all that stuff. So now that we've got all that in there, we're going to mix it all up, get those tiny little chunks in the bottom, melt it up a little bit better. Alright, so we are getting there. And this wax does work very well. I have used this on numerous different obstacles, surfaces, textures, all that good stuff. I have used it on angle iron, I've used it on coping. I recently just used this wax to wax up a virgin ledge that I found that had never been skated. I went through about 1.5 blocks of this wax right here waxing it, but that is because I waxed the top. I waxed it a good probably 5 inches out so that the entirety of my tail would be able to hit it. I waxed the inside and I waxed the edges, and I did that for probably about 10 to 12 feet. So you know, for 10 to 12 feet of fresh concrete for 1.5 blocks of this to be all that I went through, it is pretty good. It says, you know, something for the structural integrity of this recipe, of this wax that we are making. It lasts a really good long time. This wax will really sit on your ledge, the surface, really well. It gets really embedded into the concrete. It keeps it nice and slick. That way you don't have to worry about reapplying and reapplying. You don't have to worry about your trucks taking it off all the time. And this stuff also really works really well if you want to wax your nose or your tail or the middle of your board, so that you're not putting a whole lot of wax on certain things, as say a skate park or whatever. This wax really holds onto your board. It stays. It doesn't get transferred off onto stuff very easily. It's whatever you put it on is going to pretty much stay. Now obviously when you're grinding it, some of it is going to come off, but it does hold on really well. Alright, so it feels like we are close to fully liquefied. I'm going to sprinkle just a little bit of these granules that I have, this powder, in there. That way it'll kind of take some of the black color out of this. Also add a little bit more volume to our wax. Alright, I believe she is fully liquefied. And make sure to be careful when doing this next part, because this can is going to be very hot. The contents inside that can are going to be very hot as well. So make sure when doing this you are very careful. Make sure you have a rag on hand. And this is where that lid comes in pretty handy. So next you're just going to want to equally divvy out the contents of your liquid into your mold that you have. Off that way, when this softens or hardens up, excuse me, they will all be pretty equal in size. Alright, now what we're going to do, we are going to let this sit. Now what I do, I let this wax sit on the countertop for a good hour and a half, 2 hours, until it starts to solidify a little bit on top. And you can kind of give it a little bit of push on the side and it doesn't flex. And then I transfer this into the fridge for a few hours. The reason I leave it on the counter and don't transfer it straight into the fridge is just in case there are some bubbles still stuck in there. You're not going to have your wax cracking. It's not going to get big chunks taken out of it. So I like to let it just kind of sit and proof on the counter for a little while. But yeah, I'm going to let this sit here for a little while, clean up this mess I made, and we're going to come back to it and see the final product. Alright, so it's been about an hour and a half that this has been sitting here. As you can see, it is nice, got a nice little solid layer over top. It's not flexing much at all when I touch it. On the sides, there still is, probably can't see it, but there still is some wetness underneath the hard layer. So what we're going to do, take this, transfer it right down here into the fridge, and boom, that's where it's going to sit overnight. Alright y'all, so here is our final product. It's been in the fridge for several hours. Put it in last night, took it out today after getting home from work. So you know, it's been in there about about 12 hours or so. Now, it's not necessary to keep it in there that long. I just got left because I didn't take it out before going to work, but that doesn't really matter when it comes to your skate wax or the integrity of it. So without further ado, here it goes. Alright, so now we have 3 nice blocks of wax. Now, the reason I use silicone, as you can see, it came off extremely easily. Pop it back in. These are really easy to clean. This wax comes right off. It doesn't stick. It comes out super easy. I've never used like the plastic ice cube trays for making wax. So I don't really know how well that works with it coming out and all that stuff, whether you're going to break it, chip it, whatever. So I always stick with silicone. Now, this is the fresh batch of wax that we have right here. And this is the last batch I made. Now, it's been rolling around in my bag that I bring with me when I skate. So it has gotten a little bit chunked up, some little bullshit on it. But as you can see, this one is quite darker than the new batch we made. That's because I put a little more of the candle wax in there instead of the black Gulf wax, because I wanted to, you know, not make it as black, because I've noticed when I was waxing curbs and stuff like that, it was making it extremely obvious there was something on there. Just, you know, out of respect for the places I skate and all that stuff, I didn't want to mark it up real bad. But yeah, man, this wax works really, really well. Like I said, for anything, rails, coping, curbs, anything you really need. One of these blocks of wax lasts me a very long time, unless, like I said, I'm waxing a new ledge, a virgin ledge. But, I mean, even then, you do not go through this wax very quick. Like, I've had other wax, like actual name brand, like Spitfire wax, stuff like that, and I've gone through it so quick because it just seems softer. This stuff right here is really, really hard, but it doesn't chip, it doesn't break, it just waxes really good, it holds its integrity. And I mean, for the cost of the supplies that you need to make this wax, it is not much at all. You're going to benefit from making this wax. I am also going to be setting up an Etsy where I am selling skate wax and different things. I'm wanting to make, you know, some different type of art with a lot of the skateboards I have. I have a ton of old boards in my closet, so I'm wanting to do something like that. I have not set the Etsy up, but I will make sure to make a video about, you know, what the Etsy store is, what there's going to be, what I'm going to be selling. I want to get some other things together, maybe some different other than just this square wax, maybe find some molds, excuse me, and make some kind of cool little things. But you know, I kind of do want to sell, you know, a 3-pack of these for a decent price. That way, you know, people can buy it, won't be out much money at all, and they'll have some good, dependable skate wax to use while they're skating. So once I get a little more information on that, I will be sure to make a video, leave a link and all that stuff. If you have any questions about any of these materials that I used, be sure to leave a comment down below, and I'll get back with you, let you know where you can find them. I'll probably post the links in this description as well. But go ahead, leave a comment, let me know what you want to see next. If you want to see another skateboard review, another company reviewed, you want to see me do something that involves DIY, anything you can think of that has to do with skateboarding, let me know, and I'll see what I can do.